All right, welcome folks. This is the week 2 discussion for the Collective Impact for Computer Science Education course. My name is Reda Sadki. I'm here with Quorum Hassan and Juan Hernandez. I've been away for 2 weeks, so looking forward to this session and getting to know you better. I have now shared the result of the quick poll, and I think these results are very impressive. We are in fact going to focus on part 3 and the backbone function together with our guests. So very happy to see these results. Let me now share my screen. I'm going to ask for your help. I'm going to give you a complicated set of instructions, and you're going to have to think on your feet in order to follow. So I would like you to confirm, one, that you can see my screen now with the logo of the course by typing OK in the chat window. And then step 2 is to type in the name of the city that you are connecting from and the air temperature right now, or there's something about the weather. Let's see how quickly folks can type both of those pieces of information into the, yeah. All right, we've got Baltimore, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Hampton, all right, Oakland. All right, I thought there'd be, okay, more Georgia and Berkeley. All right, great. Okay, wonderful, thank you. As you discovered last week, these sessions are about your participation. There's no point to having them without you being actively involved. This is very quickly the agenda. I'm going to fly through this stuff. You can download the presentation and take more time. If you need more time to look at it, you'll find the presentation as well as a bunch of other useful links in the materials panel and in the follow-up email that you'll get tomorrow together with the recording of the session. So you can see the agenda here. Very pleased to introduce Jennifer, who manages the Collective Impact Forum. So if you haven't been to the collectiveimpactforum.org website, I strongly encourage you to visit. When Co first told me about Collective Impact, this was one of the first resources I found in my search on the web. So very pleased to have Jennifer with us and looking forward to her feedback on your presentations. Now, I selected one piece of feedback. There's been lots of dialogue, both in the public space in the community and in the private space, and this one struck me as a wonderful example of what we're hoping to see as a outcome of the course. Questioning your thinking, so thinking about thinking, generating excitement and enthusiasm with the realization of how a collective impact can be relevant and useful to your computer science education efforts, and then of course growing and understanding and enjoyment as well are all important. We're very pleased to see this. I'm going to be sharing, many of you took the time to respond to the week 1 feedback, and I'm going to be sharing some of the results from that, which I'm very grateful and appreciative for the time you take to tell us how you're doing and give us both positive and critical feedback. Now, I've made this as scary as possible. I'm sorry it wasn't Friday 13th, otherwise I would have added a Jason mask or something, but you're coming up against your first deadline, and of course you're a responsible adult learner, so you do not need to be reminded, but here is the reminder anyway. So Friday, let's say, yes, it could be Friday evening, Friday during the day, it could be before Friday, but basically we expect you to submit the draft of your project by the end of this week. And in fact, in order to go to the next step of the course, which is about peer reviewing and discovering the works of others and giving them suggestions and feedback, you're going to have to submit. This will only happen once you have submitted your draft project. Feel free as I speak to type questions or comments. And in the chat window, as I'm running through this stuff, this is the necessary but not the most interesting part of the session. And of course, we keep these very short. So I promised you some week 1 feedback. There are people struggling. There are people who thought that week 1 was packed with content. and there are people who haven't started the course yet. Whatever, if you're in any of those situations, just connect with us. We'll take time to walk you through how you can catch up. It is the middle of week 2, but there's still time and you can still submit something to get the full benefit of the course. Very much encourage you to do that and to stick with it and not give up. We are here to support you, and Quorum has been spending a lot of time individually with some of you, as have Juan and myself and the rest of the course team. Now, in fact, we're planning some additional support. So Mondays at 4 p.m., we're going to offer a technical support session. So if you're still having trouble with Scholar, with any of the technical aspects of the course, you can join this session, and you'll find the link to register for it in the materials panel. Dr. Chris Allers is with us and in this session, and he's also kindly offered to organize an extra discussion session for busy teachers, and we've shared the information too, so you can indicate your preferred times in a course team update. The link for that is also in the materials panel. So basically, don't give up, stick it out. Others are thriving, and you can see some of the very positive feedback here. There's a lot of excitement. There are people who are just forging ahead with week 2, appreciating and benefiting from the course and putting it to use in their own context. And in fact, just to give you a sense of what the course team can see that you will only discover next week during peer review, here's a list. I'm hoping you can see this list on your screen. It's very small type. I apologize for that, but that's because there's so many projects. So you'll see the diversity reflected here, and you'll see just this amazing range of projects. And just to respond to Rebecca, or to the person who asked a question privately to the organizer, sorry about that. If we don't go back to peer review, no, of course, you are not kicked out of the course. You are welcome to stay in the community, and you can opt to, if you submit your project late, you can still join in peer review. There may be some people who can benefit from that. In fact, you're welcome to stay in the community. However, we do consider that in order to usefully participate in peer review, everyone needs to be at the same stage, which means everyone in peer review has put in the effort to prepare a project and submit it for peer review. Just to give you a sense of where we are at in the Scholar process, we're going into, at the end of this week, we'll be going into stage 2 and 3, which is where you give feedback and you receive feedback. The feedback you give and receive is anonymous to allow you to be really candid and to allow you to give constructive suggestions and inputs. We realize this is quite a different way to learn, and in fact, because this group has such a high level of digital literacy and prior experience with online courses, we thought it'd be good to take more time to explain what is different about the Scholar process, and you'll be experiencing it next week, but we'll be certainly sharing some additional info about that in the community. So what you can expect next week is, as soon as you submit your own draft, the deadline is Friday, you'll receive notifications to start on peer review. You'll find the video tutorials that show you how to work through that. We've already shared some teasers about that. And basically, peer review is really important. Your peers need your feedback and suggestions. You need theirs. So there's a mutual interdependency where you're going to have to collaborate through this process, and we'll be learning from what they have done, using your experience and expertise to help them improve, which is what we'll be doing in week 4 of the course. So that's it for the the housekeeping part of the course. Again, Jennifer is our guest, and in order to let me unmute her microphone as well as Quorum, we're now going to be deep diving into the content, keeping in mind that so many of you have been hard at work on your projects. So Jennifer, welcome.
Hello, great to be with you, everybody.
Great. So I have included the slide about the backbone, and did want to invite you to give a quick overview and recap of this concept of the backbone in collective impact before we dive into the participant presentations.
Yes, absolutely. And I will keep this short because I know you all have been thinking deeply about the backbone over the course of this project. And I just wanted to share up front this one slide that talks a little bit about a framework for how we at the Collective Impact Forum and FSG think about the role of the backbone. And on the left, there are 6 functions or roles that we think are critical in the role of the backbone. These may look very familiar to some of you who have seen writing on the backbone before, and I'm sure others that are joining you as on these webinars have also shared something similar. But just to name them: guiding vision and strategy, supporting aligned activities, which is essentially ensuring that the work of the collaborative contributes to achieving the common agenda that the group has set together, establishing shared measurement practices, cultivating community engagement and ownership, which in short is ensuring that there's community voice and input included into the design and direction and governance of the initiative, advancing policy, which is actually something we tend to see backbones do later in the process once their collective impact initiative is more robust and up and running. And finally, mobilizing funding. And when we talk about this, we mean certainly that there needs to be funding for the backbone, but perhaps even more importantly, this means leveraging or bringing funding in for work that the collaborative will be taking on, so new work that the collaborative will be doing to pursue the common agenda. So lots more to say on each of these, but for now I will leave it there. The other, if you could go back for 1 second, the other thing I just wanted to also mention was that it is not only what, but how the backbone goes about their role. And we'll be talking about the functions today, but I don't want us to forget sort of the soft side of the backbone, which are some of the best practices listed on the right, related to sharing credit, not lifting up the work of all of the partners in the collaborative, building trust, being transparent, and some others that are listed here. So we want to always not only think about the functions, but also think about how the backbone is doing their work. So yes, let's move on. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Jennifer. So here is where we are going to put you on the spot, but this is an extremely capable and impressive group. So I am going to call on volunteers if you would like to raise your hand if you feel ready to take on the challenge of in 3 minutes, and I have a timer ready for you that will appear on your screen. Complete the sentence, if not for X backbone function, so the backbone you have either already written about in your project or are thinking of writing about. Y and Z will not happen in our community. And then of course, once you've made that statement, we'd like you to tell us why. You go into a little bit about the context and process and result, really focusing on what's important in order for Jennifer to be able to formulate feedback and perhaps ask follow-up questions to really just help you think through what is involved in part 3 of your project. So I was hoping to see, and and of course, if there are no hands raised, we are now familiar with the work of some of you, and I know that some of you have already done outstanding work in your creator projects. All right, Mary, let's see. You do not seem to be connected to the audio. I'm going to try to. So you'll have to either use your headset. Thank you for raising your hand. I'm not sure how you can help us. Mary, can you hear us? Yeah. All right, and I see Barbara Brown. So let's start with Barbara, who is connected to the audio. Let me unmute Barbara.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Barbara. And I believe you presented. You were also you also presented last week. So yes.
I only raised my hand because I thought I was going to be brave and maybe I'd be way down on the list. But if not for X backbone function, really the project that I'm looking at as far as incorporating both STEM as well as the arts of dialogue and things like that, and computer science in working to eliminate hunger and extreme poverty both locally and globally simultaneously. I would have to say the guiding vision and strategies, but before you or building vision and strategies, but before you could do that, you have to have an acknowledged group to say they're going to function as a backbone. What's going on in the Sumter community and the region and the state is there's a lot of work that once somebody steps up to serve as that convener, so to speak, and sort of call the meetings and move things forward and sort of in a way demonstrate some leadership, and there's multiple examples of who could do that. Once somebody sort of steps up and do that, I see a collective impact just sort of falling into place and then being able to move quite smoothly into like the six things that are said here. But we're still on, people aren't necessarily sharing the vision and they're not agreeing on strategies because they're still not that convening partner that's really taking that leadership role. So part of what now what I'm seeing I can get from this course are the insights to go and set with prospective people to do that, or maybe get one of those to convene everybody, which I think is possible, and then possibly move forward and fill in each of the steps. I think that's good enough.
Great, thank you,
Sure.
Barbara. Yeah, Jennifer, do you have any follow-up questions just to clarify Barbara's very brief presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. So it sounds like, just to make sure I'm understanding, it's you're having some challenges figuring out really who is going to play that backbone role to do those 6 functions and bring the group forward. Is that right?
Well, I guess correct. I don't know if I would even say challenges. I'm at the point of even trying to figure out who that should be, and I don't want to determine that. I want them to step forward. But I see that I don't see that people are functioning as a collective impact, and I do see that as a potential. Now, I may go meet with one of those, and they're saying, yes, we're doing that. And then all I have to say is, well, maybe you're not being as inclusive as you could. Let me tell you about this and this and this resource, and then sort of move forward from what I just said.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts that brings up for me. So different collective impact initiatives, we see the backbone really take shape at different points in the process. Sometimes a project starts and from day one they know what organization or what handful of individuals will be playing the role. There are other times where we know there's energy from a leadership group to do collective impact work, but it's not clear who will be the backbone when they start, and that sounds a little bit like your situation. So we see a couple different ways that groups go about identifying who the backbone will be. I think of it really as a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, we see some groups where you actually do an open RFP process, and you can cultivate names of potential individuals or organizations to play that backbone role and invite them to submit a proposal to do that work. Because you're exactly right that the work will have a really hard time moving forward unless there is someone playing that convening backbone role. And so if you go the route of doing an open RFP, you might work with people who have come together at a leadership level to cultivate a list of names that you want to send the RFP to, and then perhaps a subset of that group can be a selection committee. On the Collective Impact Forum website, we have some resources on how to go about doing that process of running an RFP to select the backbone. I can send that link to the course organizers after, if that would be helpful. And
Yes,
some things to look for. Yeah, and there's a list of some things to look for, such as, content expertise. Will this group be seen as a neutral convener? Do they have a respect of many of the partners, and some other criteria? So the RFP route is one route. If you just really don't know who ought to serve as the backbone and have the trust and credibility of the group. We also have have seen an interim approach where someone you hire, you can commission to really be like a third-party facilitator to guide the process until there's a little bit more of a robust structure and common agenda in place. So that might not be the person that plays the backbone over the long term, but they're doing that function of convening and facilitating Then once the project's a little bit more developed, you can then think about who the right backbone would be, because sometimes you might not even know where to start at the beginning of the project. And then a third option would simply be if there's pretty solid consensus with a leadership group up front about who might be a good backbone, you could go right to that person. I would caution with that you do want to be sure there's broad buy-in to who is playing the backbone role, and you'd want to be sure that the person that you're selecting has support without doing a more open or transparent process. But we have seen groups use that approach as well. So hopefully that helps you think about different options, and as I mentioned, I can send some of those resources over.
It does. One of my big problems is focusing, and you've already helped with that, so thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. And again, in part 3, Jennifer, what the task that the group has to complete this week is identifying the backbone functions and then picking one and describing, basically explaining the rationale for why it's especially important in the context of that community. So we've got 10 minutes left, so I do want to encourage encourage more. Really pleased to see a bunch of hands raised, and we're going to go to Rochelle. Welcome, Rochelle. Hello. And without further ado, I'm going to start the 3-minute timer.
Great. Yeah, I'll probably keep it shorter than that, just because I want to hear more from Jennifer. But basically, our project is increasing the quantity and quality of STEM mentoring opportunities for underrepresented youth in Silicon Valley. And so Silicon Valley is a region that's really rich with resources in regards to tech corporations and nonprofits that are dedicated to that cause, and school districts that are starting to implement those standards into the schools. And really, our job as the backbone, we see it as building a cohesive network for everyone to communicate the resources and best practices they've experienced in their time of this work. And I think the coalition we have right now is pretty diverse with stakeholders in regards to like race, gender, background experience, and sector. And we are in the process of brainstorming ideas for small projects that we can work together on as we build out the long-term strategy. And I think the best component of collective impact that we could use some help on right now is shared measurement. We have interviewed all of our stakeholders to ask about what they feel is most needed in the community, but we haven't actually reached directly into the community and interviewed people about what they feel they need. So we want to know essentially how we should landscape that by directly communicating with the community, maybe doing small group discussions or surveys in local areas. And we also are considering how to measure success with these small projects that we might get started on.
So would you like to would you like to complete that sentence? So if not for, is it a shared measurement function? What will not happen in your community before we go over to Jennifer?
Yeah, so I guess it would be, if not for shared measurement, equity and access to STEM mentoring opportunities to underrepresented youth would not happen in our community.
Okay, and I heard, I think, 2 parts of the question around shared measurement, and was there also a question around sort of the effect, how to reach members of community to inform the shared measurement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm super glad to hear that you're thinking about shared measurement, and I live in Berkeley, so I know Silicon Valley well. So there, you know, with shared measurement, we think about often 2 different levels, and I say this to frame, you know, where you might want input. So at the sort of, there's top level shared measures where they are the measures that the full initiative agrees to being important, and so those might be the number and quality measures that you talked about for participation in the STEM field. But then we also see it's helpful to have shared measurement at the more one level down that are specific to projects or working groups that come together. And so the first thing I would say is that you probably want to be specific about whether you're talking about shared measures for the whole initiative or shared measures for the a specific piece of the work. And I think what we have found with identifying shared measures that can be helpful is that you want both what we would call content and context expertise to inform it. So looking at whether there are standard best practice measures that many people across the country use that real content experts, so academics and others in the field, use as a starting point, but then also layer in what we call the context expertise. So as you're talking about the input of community, what do the youth, the parents, the families think is important, and then how can we measure it? And so there's no silver bullet for actually how to identify what the measures are, but thinking about both that sort of the expert advice on what should be measured as well as the input from, from member of community, I think is a great way to go. And then being sure that, especially for those that you speak with in community, if you are seeking their input, that you are circling back with them and closing the loop after the decision-making body incorporates their input so that they see how that input was used, and that they have an opportunity for further comment or revision after. So those are just a few thoughts. I know we're short on time, but hopefully that gives you a little bit to go on.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you both. I'd like to point out, of course, that the conversation can continue then in the community. We'll be posting the recording of the session, and we were hoping that you will continue to comment and and converse in that space. Now on to Jillian. I have unmuted your microphone. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hey everyone, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. We are looking at, so our couple of statements is the ability to reorient education models around the needs for 21st century workforce, particularly computer science and STEM is going to hinge on alignment of policy, public awareness, and a skilled teacher leader workforce. So our project aims to assist Georgians in collaborating to create essential conditions to support wide-scale school redesign for a rapidly changing world. I think sometimes when we just talk about STEM, we're not looking at it. Some people say, well, that's not for me. But really, we're looking at a skill set and do our current practices support the skill set that we need. So it's a little bit broader than just focused on a computer science initiative. So we're looking at trying to activate citizen awareness in sort of the changing needs of schools, and then scaling teaching innovations where people are already redesigning. We've got an amazing STEM school right here in our community that most people aren't paying attention to. So how do we make it more transparent what they've done? And then redefining definition of academic success, our grading scale and the way we've oriented subjects, and this goes into policy with graduation requirements. I know that our STEM school has sort of pushed what they can do to the limits within the way that they have to orient classes, and so we're looking to find policy that would encourage more folks to do innovative things within their school walls.
Great.
And then alignment with teacher preparation programs, because this is a pretty big shift when we're looking at, are we preparing teachers for STEM education? Are we preparing teachers for computer science? Are we preparing them to learn right along with students as the field just, there's massive access to information.
Okay.
Great. And is there a specific backbone function that you wanted to name and get feedback on?
Well, I guess it's kind of where to start, because we think all of these things need to happen, and until they're in alignment, we're not going to get wide-scale motivation for schools to redesign. There are districts in Georgia that are doing that. So maybe help with which one comes first. It's sort of the chicken or the egg. I think we would want to work on policy simultaneously with stakeholder awareness.
Yep. So I think above and beyond the roles of the backbone, the first place to start, I think, is convening the group that will be leading the initiative. And ensuring that you have the right cross-sector representation and engagement of community and those with lived experience in that group. And then once you have that group, where we see most people starting is with the guiding vision and strategy. And the framework of collective impact, of course, talks about the common agenda. And really, guiding vision and strategy means working with that leadership group to define the common agenda itself. And so there's actually a great webinar on the Collective Impact Forum that's about an hour session on how to define the common agenda and different components of the common agenda. So that might be a useful resource for you to glance at. And then after that, most of the different things, I think, most of the different functions really fall into place from there in pursuit of the common agenda. And certainly, I hear the appetite for doing policy work. I think it's also really important to, as you said, start some of the, not that policy is low-hanging fruit, but you do want to think about not only spending your time planning, but also thinking about doing and thinking about collective impact as a process for both planning and doing, so that you don't just spend a year in a beautiful planning process without having gotten any work done. And so we often call those quick wins, or kind of early, some things you can do to take early action. But I would think about that in parallel to the more holistic process of creating your common agenda, and then thinking about holistically what the different pieces of work the collaborative wants to take on.
Does it feel too big? Because it feels big, but it feels necessary.
Gosh, I think I would need a little bit more context to have a super informed comment on that. Okay. But I think, I think it depends on, the geographic scope of focus of the work you're doing and the time frame that you're thinking about and the number of partners that you have convened. So those are some of the different points that I think would inform the answer of, is it too big?
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you to all of those of you who raised your hands. I'm sorry we're not going to be able to get to everyone. I've switched to the slide about what to expect in week 3, and a reminder that we keep these sessions short because we know your time is precious. But if you're left thirsting for more, then you are able to continue at any time in the coming days the conversation in the Scholar community. Again, from the quick poll we did before the session started, I know that over half of you feel that you're going to be ready to submit your draft on Friday. That's wonderful. For the other half of the group, really want to encourage you to stick it out, take the time to read through the updates, and I'm hoping that Coram will have some additional words of encouragement to for the group as we move toward the end of week 2. Ko, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for all the great dialogue in both the community and in theater. We've seen some great interactions there. You all are sharing ideas with each other. I shared 1 or 2 samples with Jennifer by email to see what kind of great ideas you guys are sharing with each other. And one of you actually shared something that FSG has produced, a checklist on collective impact planning. So FSG clearly has a lot of great resources. Like Impact Forum has a lot of them, so please go there. So we will be sending some additional suggestions and ideas on how to formulate your responses, and we will be asking you to review 3 folks' work, take a look at it, and we'll be using a specific rubric. So you will be providing your perspective, but it'll be within a rubric that's designed to try to have the same approach for everybody. It's critical that you guys give each other feedback. We are obviously in there trying to help you answer questions, but a a big part of making this successful is to work with each other and obviously reach out if to us and others. You guys are helping each other out sometimes before we get to you. So and then obviously look at our video tutorials before you get started.
That's great, Coram. Thank you very much. We're now over time. Again, this is not the end of the conversation. This is just one moment when we all come together as a community. There are many comments, really good dialogue as we're moving towards the end of week 2. I hope that everyone here will be able to submit, yes, if not Friday, as soon as they possibly can to join in peer review. There is a window of opportunity to really move to the next step of the course. So really want to encourage you to stick it out and work on these finalized draft proposal. As Coram emphasized in his video, it is a draft. You will get in week 4 an opportunity to review and revise and finalize a final version of your project, and we have many activities planned in weeks 3 and 4 to support you. So great, thank you. Great big thank you to Jennifer, to Chris, to Juan, whose name does not appear, but who's also been in this session and helped to prepare and facilitate the course. Wishing you well and looking forward to seeing those project submissions come in on Friday. So I'm now going to unmute everyone, and it's going to make a lot of noise, but that'll give us a sense of this amazing community that we have, that has brought us, that brings us together online. If you would like to greet each other and say goodbye, yes, this is your chance. We'd love to hear your voices.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Time to go. When that happens, it's time to go.